everybody gangsta till that orchestra strikes 8 times. Now everybody's dead. One Winged Angel is easily one of the best and most iconic video game boss themes, period. It might not be my personal favorite, but objectively speaking, yeah, this is a contender for the best boss theme of all time. But I don't think many people know why. Sephiroth's one of those fictional characters that is defined by their theme song. However, it takes some smart understanding of instrumentation, music composition, contextualization, character representation, and the breaking of limitations to make One Winged Angel one of the greatest video game songs ever made. And now that I can finally stop hearing my professor obsess over Bach and Bartok for 5 hours a week, it's time to use the best of my knowledge to explain why One Winged Angel is a timeless masterpiece. No, an irreplaceable masterpiece. Stay tuned to find out what I mean by that. If somehow you're still a gangsta even after everything that's happened, then you would be able to tell that the instrumentation of this piece is made very clear at the beginning. They do be pulling out a real-ass orchestra, huh? Or about as real as it can get on a PS1, but more on that later. Some of the most dominant instruments you hear are strings and brass, with some dashes of flutes here and there, and occasionally a Latin choir. And of course, much like with every other major orchestra piece, the percussion gets reduced to just crashing cymbals and banging a scant amount of drums. Well, like I always say, it's better to bang something than to blow on a horn. Plenty of percussion instruments may be easy to play, but they are still just as vital to a piece as every other instrument, if not slightly more depending on the tune. Not saying that you must have percussion instruments in your composition, but depending on what you want it to sound like, there is no such thing as a useless instrument. Think about how many areas of this song would fall flat if the percussion was removed. Would Sephiroth be as dramatic without the cymbals and timpani? Or how about some other sections? Better yet, think about how jarring the sudden sound of cymbals come across just by themselves. Starting to see what I mean now? Likewise, some of those ominously quiet moments do not use any percussion, which makes the accented impacts all the more effective. It's also important to understand the composer's intentions to grasp the genius of this piece. Nobuo Uematsu, the composer of this song as well as a myriad of Final Fantasy music, was heavily inspired by Igor Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. Oh hey look, it's Stravinsky. Wow, what do you know? There are more music composers than just Bach and Bartok! I'm sorry, Dr. Hawkins, I really need to stop throwing you under the bus. One of the most recognizable traits of Rite of Spring is its lack of a key signature. This is the biggest no-no in all of music composition! But that doesn't mean it's wrong. Let me explain what I mean. Something that one of my other composition professors taught me is that even though there are a set amount of do's and don'ts, any of the don'ts can still be purposefully implemented in a piece if the genre and/or song allows it. A lot of rock songs with power chords use parallel motion, and they already consist of parallel fifths. And if you've ever listened to a song from the Beatles, their songs are great and all, but you'd be surprised as to how many of their tendency tones just don't resolve. Yet, it just works. Although I don't have time to explain why, as I've already struggled with writing this video for months now. I don't need to make a separate video and put it into this one. That's just too much. Although eventually, sometime down the line, I'll make a video on JoJo music. Maybe. If you subscribe to my channel. When we say doesn't have a key signature, of course we don't mean it literally. Much like how Rite of Spring is primarily in C major, One Winged Angel is written in E minor. You just wouldn't be able to tell because the accidentals make it sound all over the place. This was done to display both Sephiroth's overwhelming power and the disastrous appearance of his true form. Then again, a villain can simply claim that they've achieved ultimate strength, but the player still has to believe it, otherwise all that bragging has less base than the 13th floor of a hotel. Given that the final boss is the only time that we get to see this side of Sephiroth, the music is the only way that would have achieved it in terms of a first impression. Not only do we get those 8 orchestra slams, but also some occasional moments of hemiola. There are also moments of purposefully unresolved tendency tones here and there. Here's an extra fun fact. During the writing process, Uematsu ended up with so many different themes and ideas that he ended up with around 20 measures worth of music, rearranging them until he found an order that worked. It was difficult because each theme kinda had their own key signature, but in the end, they all revolve around one single idea. And I'm pretty sure you can guess what that is. What, you think I'm joking? I'm not. Listen to some of the other songs in the game and guess what they all have in common. Right, impact. Whether that be strong accented chords or extreme shifts in the dynamics. And One Winged Angel is impact incarnate, in more ways than one. And the sporadic key signature, hemiola, and unresolved tendency tones are all to emulate terror by messing with your head. It might not be uncommon to change keys in other music, but with One Winged Angel, the key changes so much that the very notes on the score scream fake news and change it to accidentals because fuck you. No, seriously, fuck you. You may think that you've understood the game, but really you've learned jack shit about anything even 0.5% related to One Winged Angel. But sure, just flail around that big sword like you're the Chad on your block. Another hero? Oh, please. You wouldn't understand heroism if you studied Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey template. Twice over! You think you understand why this moderately tall human with a sword that is twice the height of Mario suddenly transforms into an angel? A biblically accurate angel, no less? Of course you don't! But that's how you're supposed to feel. This is where we get into how context can really increase the impact of a piece. Oh, hang on, I'm sorry. I forgot to include the video clip. Hang on, let me just... Alright, there we go. Oh wait! There is no scenery! The song is just thrust upon you from out of nowhere, and only after that orchestra appears for the second time do you finally understand what's going on. But have you seen the scene? Even if you know what it is, you don't know what it is. Are we in heaven? No, heaven wouldn't have God trying to throw a goddamn sun at 3 people. Wait, I thought we were studying Hebrew, not mathematics. Also, what even is this? Is this what an angel is supposed to look like? Fucking western bastards trying to make the Bible all pure and holy and innocent? Well, let me ask you millennials something. If the Bible doesn't have anyone committing any immoral actions, then why do people hate Catholics so much? I'm pretty sure that the Bible has people acting like donkeys in more ways than one. Do Christians really act like this? Wait a second. I'm Christian! Is this what my holiness will inevitably look like? I thought that holy magic was only used by good people. Sephi's looking as holy as can be, yet I know that he isn't. Like, seriously, what am I up against? That kind of shit is what ingrains a good boss theme into your head. one that strikes intimidation and confusion into you before bursting forward with a booming statement. And they managed to do it with such a limited sound font. I don't mean this as a bad thing though. The best video game songs of the past have made the most out of the technology that they were given, from Mega Man games making use of extremely lower-pitched 8-bit sounds to emulate fast-paced percussion notes, to Tales of Symphonia combining classic Super Nintendo MIDI instruments with the updated instruments of the time. A game's style can, will, and should be demonstrated through the music. It's how a player can immediately recognize the soundtrack of a game just by listening to a few notes of one song. But back in the old days, some of the best video game soundtracks could practically define the musical styles of a whole console. In terms of PlayStation, Final Fantasy VII is one of the finest examples of PS1 music, and One Winged Angel is hitting the wheel to double the stakes and then throttling everything wide open like a bat out of hell to crash the gates. And those gates are trying everything they can to keep shut. Sometimes it feels like the song just can't contain all this power. Though it's important to understand that some MIDI softwares and instruments aren't capable of controlling dynamics. It's not like today where you can use live performers to play however soft or loud you want to. Back then, MIDI was the only way to make video game music. Real quick, I just want to point out that I'm incredibly misinformed on the technology in video game music. Technically, yes, MIDI sounds were used, but as for the actual implementation, I overlooked so many details like sound chips, sampling techniques, chip tunes, music streaming on CDs, lots of stuff, and I wish I could explain it properly, but I can't. So if someone in the comments could let me know what I'm getting wrong, that would be great. Anyways, back to video. Though there is a very common workaround for this disadvantage. Keep in mind that you don't have to actively change the dynamics to make a song soft or louder. Having other instruments join in and or drop out can really change the volume of a song more than you think. Uematsu and his team practically abused this technique throughout the entire piece, and most if not all of Final Fantasy VII's soundtrack in general. But all of the instruments come together during one section that I think everyone knows about. And you thought that I would be leaving out the most important part of a song while trying to analyze the damn song. No, I would never do that. I definitely didn't forget to talk about this after recording all of my lines. The thing about your average final boss theme is that they usually start off with some sort of slow build-up before immediately pumping up the main melody. Uematsu did not want that. He wanted a melody that kicked you right in the boosters and the This chord is called an E diminished sus4 chord. This includes a perfect fourth and a tritone. The effect itself is already incredibly jarring, but there is a reason why this chord in particular is so tied to Sephiroth. It's the culmination of his madness. Going back to why context matters, Sephiroth as a character, while is known for his madness and manipulation, tends to act more formal and professional. His leitmotif theme, those chosen by the planet, is much more subtle about his insanity. And that's because it kind of represented every other aspect about his personality, from his messiah complex to his professional demeanor. It felt intimidating, but also reserved. It did seem like it was missing something, but that was an intentional aspect of that piece, especially with the common theme of that piece being unresolved tendency tones, like how one's plan is unresolved, or how one's character is not fully realized by the player. One Winged Angel isn't just a final boss theme, it's one final look at Sephiroth's personality, and it gives the player that missing trait of Sephiroth's personality, his madness. The moment you hear that E diminished sus4 chord, you know exactly who Sephiroth is by that point. He's a powerful man wrapped with some sort of charismatic insanity, and look at where it's pushed him to. You've just witnessed the birth of a god, and it's an angel who has fallen from grace. And this is why I choose to call One Winged Angel an irreplaceable masterpiece. I'm specifically using this word because, hot take of the night, Most of the other official remixes have failed to capture the same magic that the PS1 version had. Not to say that they're bad or anything, nor am I saying that One Winged Angel can only sound good on a PS1 sound font, as this tune was clearly meant to be played in an actual orchestra. But ironically, that's exactly why the original is the best one in my opinion. It was such an impressive feat of PlayStation technology that most of the other renditions of the song, such as the Dissidia and Advent Children remixes, feel more like transcriptions rather than arrangements. At best, they just sound like really good fan-made remixes, but even then, I'd argue that they're slightly worse than some of the best fan remixes of other songs. The Dissidia version is literally just One Winged Angel, but on a superior sound font. I will admit that the Advent Children remix is ambitious, but when it tries to add a new idea, the results are volatile at best. On the one hand, you have slightly different lyrics, which I kinda prefer over the original. But on the other hand, they added some sort of distorted electric guitar in the piece, which isn't immediately out of place, and it's even used for clever usage of dynamics. But then they randomly felt like adding a fast-paced guitar solo that goes on for about 45 seconds and does not fit with any of the presented themes. Also, those rushing strings after the first unresolved tendency tones were replaced with a generic transitional melody, and thus it makes the piece feel so empty during that moment. If one wanted to make a proper arrangement of One Winged Angel, they'd have to include all of the themes that the piece originally had, expand upon them, and add some new ideas that legitimately complement the piece. Which is exactly what they did in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. O-H-J-E-N-O-V-A! This arrangement is magnificent! Remember when I said that the script of this video took me weeks to draft? This is exactly why! I couldn't even begin to describe how amazing this arrangement is. I mean, do you know how much music is in this piece? The original was just over 3.5 minutes long, which is a fairly meaty amount of music even today. But Rebirth, on the other hand, though I am aware that it's technically supposed to be the theme of a boss fight with more than one phase, and that different sections of the theme play during their own respective part of the boss fight. But when you combine all 3 phases, Rebirth is just over 10 minutes long! Oh wait, I'm sorry, this is not One Winged Angel Rebirth. Sorry to bother you, sir. I'll go find a video that actually is One Winged Angel Rebirth, and oh my Lanta, it's even longer than I thought! To put this into perspective, the Advent Children remix was a little under 7 minutes long, yet Rebirth towers over that one in more ways than one. The recurring idea of impact is still overwhelmingly present, despite this arrangement being double the tempo of the original, which highlights Sephiroth's slightly altered role in the remake. Look, I think it's safe to say that aside from the Zoomers that are younger than the Nintendo DS, everybody knows that Sephiroth is the main villain. So there's no need to keep it a secret for most of the game like last time. I mean, I've never played the original Final Fantasy VII, and even I knew that. He was one of my mains in Dissidia 12 though. Instead, Seph acts more like a foil to Cloud that is much more present throughout the game. Like how bits and pieces of the original One Winged Angel are just scattered throughout the first third of this arrangement. And even when it transitions into a more familiar rhythm and melody, I still feel like I know nothing. Not helped by the fact that we're getting right back to tempo in the 3rd phase. Cheesy crust for the lovers! How do you build up anticipation for a new section and still catch people off guard? Everything about this Rebirth is meant to actively strike fear and tension, almost as if someone wanted to bring me despair. I don't know, Sephi. That pair of yours is triggering my severe anxiety. Oh wait, that was your goal, wasn't it? Did it get under your skin when we all saw your angrier side in some of the games that took place before the original fantasy? Guess you took it all out on this arrangement, didn't you? Well, congratulations! You made me eat the pear. All that biblical symbolism you seem so obsessed with clearly paid off, huh? Well, I guess if anything, I was right to not doubt my faith. There is one problem, though. And even then, it's not an indictment of the arrangement, but I think they peaked too early. Keep in mind, this plays during the first fight with the main villain of the game, as opposed to play exclusively during the final boss like in the original Final Fantasy VII. So either we're just gonna end up hearing this theme again and have its quality unintentionally neutered, or there's gonna be a new piece that sadly might end up being inferior. But given the current quality of the remake, maybe we'll get something better. I'll probably be in my mid-30s by the time we reach the final boss of Final Fantasy VII in the remake. But I'm still gonna dive headfirst into another analysis when that day comes, if there's gonna be a new arrangement. I may not have a lot of subscribers at the moment, and chances are you probably came to this video without intending to subscribe to my YouTube channel, or at least following it. But rest assured, whether or not you choose to subscribe, I will never be a memory.